I never thought something so small, so ordinary, could wake me up like that. I'm not some elite athlete. I'm a man in his 60s who's been through the wear and tear of life, the stiff knees, the slowing metabolism, the mornings where it feels like gravity doubled overnight. And like most people my age, I used to believe that strength belonged to the past. That energy fades. That vigor is for the young. But I've learned that's not the full story. A few months ago, I was sitting with an old friend of mine, a retired doctor. He slid a tiny pouch across the table and said, "Chew this. Not tomorrow. Not later, right now." I looked at him like he was kidding. It was just a piece of dried ginger root, nothing fancy, nothing expensive. I chewed it for 60 seconds. At first, it burned slightly, sharp and earthy. But what came next I didn't expect. Within minutes I felt awake, not jittery, not hyped, just alive. My circulation kicked in. My joints felt looser. My chest opened up. There was this strange alertness, like my body had been waiting for a signal. And for the first time in years, I felt like there was still power inside me I hadn't tapped into. That moment started a journey. Not just about spices or food, but about reclaiming strength, rebuilding energy, not giving in to the slow fade of age. I dove deep into how natural foods, specific compounds, enzymes, and yes, even ancient spices, could activate systems inside the body most of us forget are still there. This isn't magic. It's biology. It's chemistry. And it's been overlooked for too long. Strength doesn't vanish with age. It just hides behind years of neglect, poor circulation, low-grade inflammation, and forgotten movement. But when you fuel the body with the right triggers, when you wake up the blood, the muscles, the mitochondria, you unlock something ancient, something resilient. This spice. It was just the first key. What followed was a complete shift in how I approached food, motion, breath, and recovery. And the best part, you don't need a gym membership. You don't need youth. You just need the right intention and the right knowledge. Today I'm going to share what worked. Not theories. Not trends. Just real steps that helped me feel strong again. Things I wish I'd known 20 years ago. And it all starts with understanding the body still wants to heal, still wants to grow, still wants to move. You just have to give it a reason. It didn't happen overnight, but one morning I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized the man I saw. The spark was missing. My energy had dulled. My legs didn't move like they used to. And even a short walk to the mailbox left me feeling breathless. I wasn't sick. I wasn't injured. But I felt tired in a way that didn't feel natural. I tried sleeping more. I drank more water. I even cut back on coffee. But nothing really helped. I chalked it up to age, until one conversation changed everything. It was at the farmer's market of all places. A woman, easily in her 70s, with bright eyes and a voice full of life, noticed me holding a basket of herbal teas and asked if I had ever chewed raw ginger before. I told her I'd used it in cooking, added it to tea maybe, but chew it? Never. She nodded and handed me a small chunk wrapped in parchment. "Try this," she said. "Chew it for a full minute. Don't swallow right away. Let your body feel it." I smiled politely, unsure what chewing a piece of root could possibly do. But I took it. That evening, I gave it a try. I sliced a small coin of raw ginger and placed it on my tongue. The taste hit fast, fiery, sharp, almost shocking. I chewed. The fibers burst with warmth, a heat that moved down my throat and into my chest. Around the 30-second mark, something shifted. My sinuses cleared. I took a deeper breath than I had in days. My skin prickled like blood was waking up underneath. It wasn't just a flavor. It was a reaction, a signal. My body was responding. The next morning, I did it again. Before breakfast this time. And that's when I noticed the change. My usual sluggishness, that heaviness in my legs, wasn't there. I moved a little faster. I stood straighter. It was subtle but real. I felt present. I felt on. And that was the beginning. I began researching. Ginger, it turns out, isn't just a spice. It's a potent medicinal root that's been used for centuries. And the science backed up everything I was feeling. Raw ginger contains compounds called gingerols and shogols, natural chemicals with powerful anti-inflammatory effects. When you chew it, You release those compounds directly into your mouth, where they begin acting almost immediately, especially on the blood vessels. That heat, that rush, it's vasodilation. Your blood vessels expand, blood flows more freely, and oxygen reaches your muscles and brain faster. But it wasn't just circulation. Ginger also stimulates digestion, calms nausea, and boosts metabolism. For someone over 60, whose system tends to slow down, these effects are like flipping on a switch. I began chewing raw ginger before my morning walks. The difference was night and day. I didn't drag my feet anymore. My breathing became steady. My stride lengthened. I felt like I had fuel in my tank again. Even more surprising was what happened over time. Within 2 weeks, I noticed my joint pain easing. My knees, which used to creak and ache with every stare, felt looser. I started moving more freely. And that encouraged me to move more often, which created a cycle of improvement. I wasn't taking pain pills. I wasn't relying on supplements. I was simply giving my body what it had needed all along, something natural, powerful, and completely overlooked. As the weeks passed, I got curious. What if I added ginger before my workouts? What if I used it when I felt mentally foggy? I began experimenting. Before lifting weights, I'd chew a slice. I felt sharper, more focused, more capable of pushing myself. The activation wasn't just physical, it was mental. Ginger's compounds also cross the blood-brain barrier and influence neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. It wasn't just giving me energy. It was improving my mindset. That's when I started recommending it to friends, especially those who'd begun to accept decline as their new normal. I told them, chew it for 60 seconds. Every day. Do it first thing in the morning, or right before your walk. Don't expect miracles, but do expect change. Some were skeptical, but those who committed saw the same transformation. They felt lighter, stronger, more alert, and most importantly, they started believing in their bodies again. Ginger is not a miracle in itself, but what it does is open the door. It activates the systems that have been dormant: circulation, inflammation control, metabolic energy. And it gives you a chance to build on that. With better blood flow comes better nutrient delivery. With less inflammation comes better movement. With more energy comes the desire to train, to stretch, to engage with life again. It's not about the spice. It's about what it triggers. And that's why I keep it part of my daily ritual. I buy fresh ginger weekly. I cut it into bite-sized pieces and store them in the fridge. Every morning, I chew one while standing by the window, watching the sun come up. It reminds me that strength isn't about lifting the heaviest weight or running the fastest mile. Sometimes, strength is about making one tiny choice each day that pushes back against decay. There are dozens of pills marketed to people my age. Powdered drinks, synthetic boosters, overpriced, miracle, vitamins. But this simple root, natural, whole, and powerful, has done more for my clarity, mobility, and drive than any of them. And best of all, it's accessible, it's affordable, and it doesn't pretend to be anything it's not. I share this not as a cure, but as an invitation. To chew, to feel, to listen. If you've ever felt like your energy is slipping, like your legs don't move the way they used to, like the days blur together and you've started to fade, this is a signal. You're not done. Your body still remembers strength. Sometimes it just needs a jolt, a breath of fire, a second chance, and sometimes all it takes is 60 seconds. The first time I noticed the difference was after 3 weeks of consistency. It wasn't dramatic. There was no sudden burst of strength or overnight transformation. But it was real. I bent down to tie my shoes and realized I didn't wince. I stood up from the floor without using my hands. And for the first time in months, I walked around the block without my knees reminding me of my age. I paused in that moment, wondering if it was just a good day, or something more. I had been adding a pinch of turmeric to my morning eggs, sprinkling cayenne into my bone broth, sucking on a clove mid-afternoon instead of reaching for a candy. These were small actions, easy to overlook, but rooted in ancient wisdom and confirmed by modern science. I wasn't following a trendy detox. I wasn't on medication. I was simply reintroducing forgotten medicine into my food, medicine in the form of spice. Turmeric came first. I had read about it for years. How curcumin, its active compound, had powerful anti-inflammatory properties. But what no one tells you is that turmeric by itself isn't easily absorbed by the body. It needs help. That's where black pepper comes in. Piperin, found in black pepper, increases curcumin absorption by over 2,000%. Once I learned that, I started blending the two daily. I'd mix a teaspoon of turmeric, a dash of black pepper, and a bit of olive oil into warm water and sip it slowly after breakfast. It wasn't delicious, but it felt like it mattered. And it did. My joints didn't crack as much. My hands, stiff in the mornings, opened easier. There was a warmth that lingered. Not the kind from exercise, but from within, like something vital had been reactivated. It was circulation, blood flow, movement. I felt more mobile, more in command of my limbs. That alone would have been enough to keep going, but I wasn't done experimenting. Next came clove. At first, I used it for digestion. I'd heard chewing on a clove could reduce bloating and freshen breath. But I didn't expect what followed. About 10 minutes after letting one dissolve slowly in my mouth, my focus sharpened. My body felt calmer. Clove contains eugenol, a compound that not only numbs minor pain but also improves blood circulation and acts as a powerful antioxidant. Over time, this little brown bud started making a real difference in how I felt day to day. Less sluggish. Less stiffness in the lower back. More rhythm in my walk. What fascinated me was how something so small could create such an effect. It reminded me that modern medicine often chases symptoms. But these spices worked upstream, preventing the buildup of problems instead of just treating the result. That's why I kept going. That's why I started sharing it with friends who were dealing with the same issues. Tight joints, low energy, discomfort that seemed permanent. Cayenne was the final addition. I had always associated it with heat and flavor, but never with healing. Then I learned about capsaicin, the compound in cayenne that creates its signature burn. Capsaicin stimulates blood flow, improves circulation, and can even desensitize pain receptors in the body over time. I began with a sprinkle in soup. Then I added it to lemon water in the morning. Just a dash, enough to create a gentle flush of warmth through my chest, arms, and legs. It wasn't just a sensation. It was my blood vessels opening, my heart pumping with more force, my extremities receiving nutrients they'd been missing. I started to understand that spices were more than ingredients. They were tools. Natural, affordable, and accessible to anyone willing to be consistent. These weren't quick fixes, but they were reliable, predictable, gentle on the body yet powerful over time. I didn't need to overhaul my life. I just had to make small decisions, day by day, that supported my long-term strength and flexibility. The people around me began to notice. My posture improved. My steps became more confident. I moved like someone who was 5, even 10 years younger, and they asked me what I was doing. I didn't have a fancy plan or a supplement stack. I just told them the truth. I was adding turmeric, clove, and cayenne to my food every day. Not because I was chasing flavor, but because I was rebuilding function. I remember one moment clearly. I was climbing the stairs with my grandson in my arms. Normally I'd hesitate, shift weight, go one step at a time. But this time, I moved steadily, without fear, without pain. It clicked in that moment how important these changes had been. Not just for me, but for the people who depend on me to be strong, to be present, to be mobile and capable and free. And it's not that these spices are miracle cures. They're not. But what they offer is support. They give your body a fighting chance. They reduce the hidden inflammation that builds up over the years. They improve blood flow to tissues that need healing. They lubricate movement by protecting cartilage and connective tissue. They protect your cells from oxidative damage. And they do all this quietly, without fanfare, without side effects, without draining your bank account. I now look at my spice rack differently. It's not a shelf of flavors. It's a pharmacy, a legacy of healing handed down through centuries, confirmed by science, and made available to everyone who chooses to engage with it. When I prepare food now, I season not just for taste but for strength. A pinch of turmeric for my knees, a clove to keep my arteries open, A touch of cayenne for energy and warmth. What once seemed like age catching up to me now feels like energy returning. I still feel the passage of time, but I no longer feel powerless against it. Because I've discovered that some of the most effective strategies for reclaiming your vitality are already in your kitchen. You just have to choose them. That's what I want others to know. That you don't need to accept decline as destiny. That your strength is not gone. It's just buried under years of inflammation, poor circulation, and forgotten habits. And sometimes all it takes to begin reversing that is a few humble spices, taken daily, used with purpose, trusted over time. The body knows how to heal. It's built for it. You just have to give it the signals, and sometimes those signals come in the form of turmeric, clove, and cayenne. Not as a recipe, not as a trend, but as a commitment to your own vitality, to the version of you that still wants to move freely, think clearly, and live fully. It's easy to feel like your energy has a limit as you age. Like your body runs on a smaller battery than it used to. I used to think that too. I'd wake up groggy. Even after 8 hours of sleep, I'd get winded going up one flight of stairs. I assumed that was just how things go after 60. That it was normal. That it couldn't change. But I was wrong. Everything changed when I stopped looking at energy as some mysterious force and started understanding how it's really made. Inside each of us, inside every muscle cell, every nerve, every fiber, is a tiny engine called the mitochondrion. And that's not poetic language. That's real biology. Mitochondria are what create the energy your body runs on. Every movement, every heartbeat, every breath, every thought is powered by these microscopic generators. The problem is over time our mitochondria slow down, they get sluggish, they get damaged. They don't burn fuel as efficiently. And when that happens, you feel it. Not in your cells, but in your life. You feel it when you can't carry groceries without pausing. You feel it when your legs feel like lead. You feel it when you want to do something but don't have the drive to act. That's not just getting older. That's your mitochondria waving a white flag. And here's where the story turns. Because the moment I realized this, I stopped blaming age and started researching how to feed, support, and rebuild those engines. That's when I discovered something remarkable. Certain natural spices, simple, everyday spices, have compounds that activate and protect your mitochondria. They don't just flavor your food. They fuel your energy systems. They clean out the waste, improve oxygen use, and protect those fragile engines from breaking down. Take cinnamon, for example. Everyone thinks of it as something sweet, a topping for oatmeal or a spice in desserts. But cinnamon is one of the most potent mitochondrial boosters out there. It improves insulin sensitivity, which means your cells can absorb more glucose. And glucose, when burned properly, is high-quality fuel for your mitochondria. Better glucose use means more consistent energy, fewer crashes, and longer, lasting stamina. I started adding a teaspoon of cinnamon to my morning coffee, and within a week I noticed my energy didn't dip mid-morning like it used to. I didn't need a nap after lunch. I stayed steady, which for someone over 60 feels like a superpower. Then there's rosemary. This herb, which I used to ignore in the spice rack, is loaded with carnosic acid, a compound that supports mitochondrial health and has even been studied for its neuroprotective properties. I started using rosemary in roasted vegetables, adding it to soups, even steeping it into tea. The change was subtle but steady. My mind felt sharper. My physical movements felt more coordinated. It's hard to explain unless you've lived through energy loss. But when you get some of it back, even just a little, it's like a fog lifts. Another spice that surprised me was black cumin seed. I had heard about it in traditional medicine circles, but never took it seriously. That changed when I read studies showing how thymoquinone, a compound found in black cumin, supports mitochondrial biogenesis. That's the creation of new mitochondria. The idea that my body could actually grow new engines. That was revolutionary to me. I started incorporating black cumin seed oil into my meals, sometimes taking a small spoonful on its own. It wasn't an overnight fix, but within a month, I felt a noticeable difference in my endurance during walks. I wasn't as winded. I didn't feel like my body was dragging itself uphill. What makes these spices so powerful isn't just their flavor. It's their ability to act on a cellular level. Most people chase energy through caffeine, sugar, or stimulants. But those are external. They rev you up without repairing what's broken inside. Natural spices work differently. They help restore what's been worn down. They rebuild from the inside out. They clean out the oxidative stress that clogs up your mitochondria. They encourage the body to produce more enzymes, more blood flow, more vitality. I started to view my spice cabinet like a battery charger. A little cinnamon in the morning, rosemary in the afternoon, cumin at night. I didn't change everything about my life. I just made these small changes consistently. And slowly my capacity returned. I started walking longer. I added light strength training. I felt stronger, not just physically but emotionally. Because when your energy comes back, so does your confidence. The beautiful part of all this is that it's natural. It doesn't require prescriptions or expensive supplements. It's food-based. It's safe. It's sustainable. It's ancient wisdom meeting modern science. And for people like me, over 60, maybe feeling the weight of age pressing down, it's hope. Not false hope, but real, grounded possibility. I talk to friends about this all the time now. Many of them are skeptical at first. They think energy loss is just something you accept. They don't realize they have agency. But I always ask them one question: what if your body isn't the problem? What if your engines just need better fuel? That usually gets their attention. Because deep down, no one wants to feel like their best days are behind them. We all want to feel alive again. These spices gave me that. Not because they're magic, but because they're consistent, reliable tools. Cinnamon to stabilize energy. Rosemary to sharpen the mind. Black cumin to rebuild from the inside. Every single one supports mitochondria. And mitochondria are what power everything. If you're reading this and feeling like you've run out of steam, I want you to know there's more inside you. Your strength hasn't vanished. Your stamina isn't gone. It's just waiting. Waiting for you to take the first small step. To feed it. To care for it. To believe in it. Start with one spice. Stay with it. Let your body remember what energy feels like. And over time, watch what happens when your mitochondria come back to life. It was a quiet morning when I first tried it. No fanfare, no great expectation. Just a slice of ginger, a few minutes before my usual walk. I wasn't even sure what I was hoping for. Maybe just a bit of warmth or a little circulation boost. But what happened caught me off guard. I didn't just walk. I moved. My steps were sharper. My posture more upright. I felt quicker on my feet, like my legs were finally responding to my brain in real time. It was subtle, but real. And that was the start of everything. The idea that chewing certain spices before moving your body could actually change how your muscles and brain talk to each other seemed far-fetched at first. But I kept feeling it, again and again. Not just with ginger, but with cayenne, with black pepper, even with mustard seeds. Each time, about 10 minutes after chewing a small piece, something inside would switch on. I could sense it in my feet, my balance, the way I turned corners. I wasn't dragging myself through movement. I was engaged in it. I started digging into why, and what I found was fascinating. These pungent spices aren't just stimulants, they're neuromuscular activators. They contain compounds that increase sensory nerve firing, expand blood vessels, and stimulate thermogenesis. But beyond that, they wake up dormant systems in the body that regulate coordination, balance, and spatial awareness. For people over 60, these systems are critical. They fade quietly, and most don't notice until one day they trip over nothing, or miss a step, or feel unsteady just getting out of a chair. But what if those pathways could be reawakened? That's what happened to me. Chewing a raw clove before a set of squats helped me control my descent better. A slice of ginger before stretching allowed my muscles to stay activated longer. Cayenne, when chewed carefully and slowly, brought heat not just to my mouth, but all the way through my chest and down to my legs. And each time, the mind-muscle connection, the line between intention and movement, became clearer, sharper, more alive. This wasn't about becoming a bodybuilder. It was about staying capable, about being able to reach for something on the floor without losing balance, about stepping off a curb without fear, about climbing stairs with confidence. The ability to move safely and efficiently is freedom. And when you're older, it's the kind of freedom most take for granted, until it starts slipping. That's why I kept testing. I began a morning ritual: chew a pungent spice, wait 10 minutes, then do light bodyweight movements, lunges, arm circles, neck rolls. Each day felt smoother than the last. It wasn't just physical, it was neurological. My brain felt like it was tuning back in to my body, like it had been asleep at the wheel and was finally grabbing the wheel again. I started recommending it to friends. Not everyone believed it at first. Some laughed, but those who tried it, even for a week, came back with stories. One man said his daily walks felt lighter. A woman told me she stopped catching her toe on uneven pavement. Another man said his back didn't lock up after shoveling his garden for the first time in years. These weren't radical changes, but they were real, and they came from something as simple as a spice chewed with purpose. Black pepper became a favorite, not only because of its flavor but because of piperine. That's the compound that makes it spicy, and it also enhances brain signaling. It makes nerves fire a little quicker, makes the messages from your brain to your limbs move more clearly. It doesn't make you stronger, but it helps you use what strength you still have, and that makes all the difference. I began to understand that as we age, it's not always strength that disappears first, it's connection. The brain and body lose sync. Movements become slower not just because of weak muscles, but because the signal gets fuzzy. That's where pungent spices step in. They don't build muscle, but they clear the fog. They clean the static out of the system. They help you remember what your body can still do. The science is catching up now. Researchers are studying how these spices affect proprioception, the sense of where your body is in space. They're looking at how they influence neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, which plays a key role in movement. But for me, I don't need a study to tell me what I already feel. I chew, I move, I improve. That's my proof. And it doesn't take much. A tiny sliver of ginger, a few mustard seeds rolled around the mouth, a pinch of cayenne mixed with honey. You feel the heat rise. Your eyes might water slightly. But soon, your limbs feel more awake. Your steps feel more deliberate. Your posture straightens. You take that first step with more certainty than yesterday. And for someone in their 60s or 70s, that's everything. I think often about how easy it is to overlook these solutions. We chase complex therapies, expensive machines, trendy supplements. But right there, in the kitchen drawer, might be the spark you've been looking for. Not to become someone else, but to return to the version of yourself that moved with confidence, that turned without bracing, that stood without swaying. That version of you isn't gone. It's just asleep. And sometimes, all it needs is a little fire, a little spice, to wake back up. So now every time I chew that ginger or savor that clove, I don't just think about flavor. I think about function. I think about how it helps me walk better, think clearer, move freer. I think about the freedom that comes with confidence in your own body. And I remind myself strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a small habit done daily. A warm burn in the chest. A sharper step on the sidewalk. A subtle balance returning where once there was wobble. Sometimes it's just one bite of wah.